Okay, so in this case, we're looking at a woman, a 29-year-old woman who came for a routine obstetrical sonogram. Now, I want to caution you, don't just take a quick look and Aunt Minnie this case. You want to look at the anatomy.
Okay. All right, so we've got several images of the fetal head, and I'm going to grab the cursor here. So this is posterior. This is the atrial ventricle and choroid, and I think we're looking at this small. Well, actually, I think now that I'm looking at it, it looks as if this is kind of a cystic structure, and I think you're maybe trying to get me to think it's a choroid plexus cyst, which should really occur back here in the choroid. We're dealing with something in the frontal horns. And the frontal horn should really, in a fetus of this age, I think, shouldn't have too much going on in there. So I think the abnormality is actually right here. And what I would think mainly occurring in this region would be an intraventricular subependymal hemorrhage, or whatever you want to call it.
Okay. That's pretty good.
Oops, sorry.
It's all right. Okay, so you're saying the diagnosis is an intracranial hemorrhage in the fetus.
Correct.
Okay. Now, were the ventricles dilated or not?
Not.
Not. So that would speak against the blood having...
escaped the confines of the subependum.
Exactly. So what we're really dealing with here are bilateral subependymal hemorrhages in the fetus.
Bilateral.
Yes.
And one's cystic and one's not.
They're both cystic. See, this is the upside ventricle. It's
Okay.
cystic.
Oh, right.
Here's the downside ventricle, and it's cystic as well. Now, cystic just means it's had a while to develop. It's
Okay.
been there for a while. So if you were to see this in a neonate, you would say, okay, this is not a fresh hemorrhage. This is a hemorrhage that's been there, which is an interesting thing in and of itself. If on day one you see a neonate with hemorrhages that look like this, you know those hemorrhages actually occurred in fetal life, not in neonatal life.
Right.
Okay. So what we're dealing with here is a fetus with bilateral subependymal hemorrhages that have been there for a while and do not, as far as we can tell, appear to have escaped into the ventricle. So they would be
Grade 1.
grade 1 and not grade 2 or 3.
Okay. How did I distinguish them from choroid plexus cysts? By location.
That is correct. Choroid plexus cysts occur in the choroid, and the choroid, I won't say it never extends into the frontal horn, but the only way it can do that is because the choroid is not firmly held, and it's possible in a very small number of cases for some choroid to sort of by gravity flop up toward the frontal horn.
Can I click back here for
Sure.
1 second? Because, so I was looking at this right here.
Yeah.
So is that blood or is that choroid?
That's blood clot.
Okay, that's what I was, okay.
The other thing that you want to notice here is that the ependyma of the frontal horn is literally 1 or 2 cells thick.
Okay.
It's not going to make this bright rim of margin.
Oh, right.
Okay, that's all part of the hemorrhage.
Okay.
See that?
So this entire thing we're seeing here is cystic, and the echogenic focus is
Yeah.
all part of the hemorrhage.
That is correct.
Okay.
All of that, all of this, everything you see here, everything you see
hemorrhage.
here is part of the subependymal hemorrhage. Now remember that the subependymal hemorrhage occurred on this side of the ventricle, and it's
Right.
bulging
Sure.
into the frontal horn.
Okay.
So you distinguished it in the correct way. It's just very unlikely for that to have been choroid plexus in that location. And so
Right.
makes it very likely to be bilateral subependymal hemorrhage. And
Grade
we
1.
talked about these would be grade 1 based on the information we talked about.
Because of the varying age, or the age.
The age, that
Yes.
is correct.
Excellent.
Yeah, excellent. And while we don't have any large-scale studies on grade 1 hemorrhages, we do have a modest experience with this, and one of our maternal fetal medicine geneticist specialists looked at these, and generally speaking, the children did well. I mean, it was not ever easy to know.
We talking about prenatal or neonatal?
Prenatal.
Prenatal.
Yeah,
hemorrhages.
there's plenty of information on neonatal grade 1.
Right.
That's well established. But what we don't know is the prognosis worse if it's a fetal grade 1 hemorrhage. And, you know, the likely answer to that is that a careful study on enough fetuses would show that it is probably somewhat worse.
Right.
But overall, our experience to date has been that the prognosis is pretty darn good with these things. Sorry.
What is?
Well, we just talked about that. Okay.
Oh, okay. So
Prognosis
fetuses
for
versus
fetuses,
neonates. Yeah, that's what I was questioning.
Neonates, excellent. Prognosis for fetuses, also I would say very good, although if we had a large-scale study, probably wouldn't be as good as they are for neonates.
All right, great. Thanks.